Welcome back to the Double Feature, the series where I play two random games in a single video, although, once again, the games that I'm going to be showing off are not random in the slightest because they're actually part of the same series. And it's also kind of a sequel, in a sense, to the last Double Feature video, because both of the games I'm covering today are shm'ups once again. So in this installment of the Double Feature, I am once again going to be showing off some old-school arcade games, although these ones are a little more obscure. I don't believe that these particular games are really that well known. I mean, they were developed by Konami, but I wouldn't say that most of Konami's early shoot-'em-ups are that fondly remembered, except for maybe Scramble and obviously Gradius. Every other shoot-'em-up that they made back in this era has mostly been forgotten with time, I would say. And actually, it's kind of funny that I mentioned time specifically, because the two games I'll be showcasing today are part of a series known as Time Pilot. So Time Pilot is an arcade game released by Konami back in 1982. It is technically a fixed shooter, but only in the sense that the ship that you're controlling is locked to the center of the screen at all times. However, this game gives you a lot more freedom of movement than most fixed shooters of the time, because not only can you move horizontally, but you can also move vertically and diagonally. The game plays in a somewhat similar manner as Bosconian, where neither you nor the enemies are affixed to a certain part of the screen. You're basically given this relatively large open environment that wraps on itself horizontally and vertically. Instead of just being able to fire vertically, you can also fire horizontally and diagonally, and in order to complete all of the levels in this game, you need to destroy a very specific target. However, that target does not appear until you've killed a certain number of enemies. As soon as you destroy that target, you just move on to the next level. There's only 5 levels in this game in total, and after you complete the 5th level, the game will just loop on itself. Indeed, as with most arcade games from this era, the game does not have a definitive ending, it just loops over and over until you eventually lose all your lives. That being said, the enemies do become a lot more aggressive in the later stages, or I guess the later loops as it were, so it's not like the game suddenly becomes easier when it reverts back to the first stage, quite the opposite. So the premise of Time Pilot is that you are controlling a fighter jet that can time travel, apparently. Indeed, your fighter jet is capable of hopping through various periods of time, and apparently the whole reason why you're traveling through different eras of time to begin with is because you need to try and save some other pilots that somehow manage to get themselves stuck in certain periods of time, because I'm guessing they also fly time-traveling fighter jets too, and they somehow manage to just get lost in time, as it were. I don't really understand it at all, and once again, the game doesn't have an ending, so yeah, it's appropriate that we're playing a game about time travel, and we're just constantly looping through different eras of time. It's perfect, man. It's just an infinite loop of pain and trauma, basically. So like I said before, Time Pilot is a fairly obscure Konami shoot-'em-up. I don't believe this game was that commercially successful, but it did eventually receive some console ports, like there was an Atari 2600 port of this game that came out in 1983, and there was also a ColecoVision port as well that came out the same year, I think? And there is a very good reason why this is a double feature video, because Time Pilot was popular enough to receive a sequel in 1984, simply called Time Pilot 84. But we're going to be taking a look at that game a little bit later on in this video. For now, I would like to show you guys the original Time Pilot here. Now, if you wish to know precisely the different types of eras that we're going to be traveling through in this game, the first level takes place in the year 1910, followed by 1940, 1970, 1982, or 83, depending on which version of the game you're playing, and finally, 2001. So we're going to be taking a trip through approximately 9 decades of flight here. So with that being said, let's just get started right away. I am going to insert a credit here. I don't really need to insert that many credits, but whatever, it's fine. So you get an extra life for every 10,000 points and every 50,000 points after that. So I do just want to show you this very quickly. I did enable a dip switch that allows me to have 5 lives instead of the default 3. Now, similar to Juno First, which was also made by Konami, there is a cheat that you can enable that gives you 255 lives, but I'm not going to use that just yet because I would like to try and play this game normally, like the way it was meant to be played. I'd like to try and do a couple of legitimate attempts of this game first, but I would also like to show you guys the very last level of the game. But keep in mind that Time Pilot is a fairly difficult game, so I'm gonna try and see if I can get to the 2001 level normally, but if I can't, I might just enable the cheat so that I can show it to you guys anyway. Right, so we are gonna begin here. Our journey will begin in the year 1910, and my fighter jet already looks extremely out of place just given the time period. Indeed, so we're technically fighting in World War I, even though World War I actually began in 1914, so not entirely accurate, but yeah, so these are fighter jets from the early 10s, basically, the early 1910s. As you can see, they are firing a lot of bombs at me. So, like I said before, Time Pilot is a fairly difficult game, but thankfully a lot of these enemies do die in one hit. So some enemies can also attack you in a formation, which is also similar to Bosconian, because the enemies in Bosconian can do the same thing. I have no idea if this game took inspiration from Bosconian, but it just seems like there's a lot of elements in this game that are fairly similar to it, so, I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if the developers at Konami did take some inspiration from it. So, the way that this gameplay is not by getting your ass blasted with a bomb, just for the record, like I just did right there. So, yeah, you basically have, like, 8 degrees of freedom, essentially, to move around here. I don't know what sort of control scheme you would have been using on the actual arcade cabinet, because I haven't seen an actual image of this game's arcade cabinet, but I imagine you'd probably be using a joystick and a button, because if you're playing this on Mayhem, the only controls on Mayhem are the arrow keys to move around and the control key to shoot. And there's only one type of weapon that you can use in this game, which are these little white bullets that you fire right here. So, by the way, that Zeppelin is technically the mini-boss of this level, and as soon as you destroy that Zeppelin, you just move on to the next level immediately. So we're already in the year 1940, so we're jumping 30 years over to World War II. So now we have these fighter jets right here. I believe these ones just fire bullets at us, if I'm not mistaken. Once again, they can attack you in a formation. There's also some larger planes here as well. I think there's like, what are these called again? Are they called bombers? I don't freaking remember. I literally just ran right into that bullet, so that was entirely my fault. Absolutely perfect. I already don't know what I'm doing. My brain has turned into gelatin. Converted directly into strawberry gelatin. Okay, so the bigger enemies are slightly more difficult to kill because they do require you to shoot at them a few more times than usual. Those pilots that you see right there, like right here, you can pick them up in order to gain more points if you want to try and earn extra lives a lot more quickly. You can also crash directly into enemy fighters as well, which does destroy them instantly. But the only problem is that it also kills you instantly, so yeah, maybe don't do anything that I'm doing right now. Like I said, this is one of those games that definitely requires quite a bit of concentration, because it is a pretty difficult game. Now, if you look at the bottom of the screen, specifically the bottom left of the screen, there is actually an indication at the bottom of the screen telling you how close you are to completing the level. So there's a group of enemy icons that typically appear at the very bottom of the level when you begin a new level, and as you destroy more enemies, those icons will slowly be erased from the screen. Also, we're in the year 1970, by the way, and we're fighting attack helicopters now that launch missiles, and these are heat-seeking missiles too, so you have to actively move around in order to avoid them. Thankfully, you can destroy the missiles with your own bullets, though, which is a mighty good thing indeed. But yeah, you'll notice that as I kill enemies here, those little icons at the bottom of the screen will slowly start getting erased. And once all of those icons are gone completely, then the mini-boss of the level will spawn within a few seconds. And as soon as you kill the mini-boss, the level will end. all of the enemies that are on screen at the time will get destroyed instantly, and I do believe you still get points for all the enemies that die. At least all the ones that are still on the screen, because much like Bosconian, this is also one of those shoot-em-ups where the enemies will literally never stop spawning until you complete the level. So, yeah. It can be kind of annoying at times. Also, I really need to do a better job at avoiding these missiles. I think I already did spawn the mini-boss in, by the way, so we just need to destroy him and... Seriously? I was gonna say we need to destroy him and then we'll be done. We'll be able to go on to the 1982 level, but then I decided to just stop being smart entirely, as if I was ever smart to begin with. I will admit that this game doesn't really do anything groundbreaking in the shoot-em-up genre, which I think is probably one of the reasons why it's not that well remembered to begin with. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is still a really fun game, but it doesn't really do anything new in terms of like reinventing the genre, because again, it does play quite similar to Bosconian, or quite similarly. Wow, okay, I'm not even like paying attention, dude. Okay, you know what, I might just go right ahead and just enable the cheat right now, because I have no attention span. My attention span has just disappeared. You know what, F this, screw this, I'm resetting this. Okay, let's actually try to be somewhat competent here. Let's try to be somewhat competent this time around, okay? But as I was trying to say before, this game doesn't exactly do anything groundbreaking in terms of like reinventing the genre. It doesn't really do that many new things that we hadn't already seen in most shoot-em-ups up to this point in time. I mean, I do like the parallax scrolling effects on these clouds right here, but I mean, parallax scrolling effects were already something that most developers were doing by this point, because Moon Patrol had already been released by this point in time, and that was pretty much the game that pioneered the use of parallax scrolling effects in video games. So, Moon Patrol was already doing parallax scrolling effects, and Bosconian was already doing the more, like, open-world approach to shoot-em-ups here, or, well, I don't know if you would call this open-world necessarily, but, like, you know, giving you more freedom over where you can move around in the environment, instead of just, making everything fixed to a point. Or, like, fixed along a horizontal axis, basically. Or, I guess, a vertical axis? Or whatever. Like, there were already other shoot-em-ups that allowed you to move vertically and diagonally, in addition to horizontally, okay? Like, that's basically what I'm trying to say here. I do kind of like how the enemy play-ins also go behind the clouds. They actually duck behind them. And actually, your own ship does that, too. Or your, not your ship, but your own fighter jet. Yeah, because this is also this is also kind of a unique shoot-em-up in the sense that, most of the levels do not take place in space, except for the final level. They actually do technically take place on Earth. And not only that, but it takes place in, like, an older era of dogfighting, essentially. Like the 1910s, 1940s, and the 1970s. So it's kind of unique in that regard, but, you know, by the time you get to the 2001 level, it does kind of become, like, another... basically just another straightforward shoot-em-up. But I mean, I still like it. I mean, the concept of time travel is interesting, to say the least, and I don't think there were that many shoot-em-ups that were experimenting with the concept of time travel at the time that this came out. Not that I'm aware of, at least. Also, I'm not entirely sure what this 1970 level is supposed to be a reference to specifically. My first guess was probably the Vietnam War, just because of the year, 1970, because, I mean, the Vietnam War was still very much active by that point in time. Okay, maybe I do just need to enable the cheats. You know what? I will just do it. I will just do it. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight, but, like, this is absurd. I just want you guys to know that I've managed to fare a lot better in this game with only 5 lives. I've actually managed to make it to the 1982 stage with only 5 lives before, so... I was playing a lot better at this off-screen, but it's like, I don't know if it's just because of, you know, the so-called Let's Play curse, where, or I mean, maybe it's just because I'm, like, trying to commentate and also focus on the game at the same time, which is basically impossible. But my god, man, I don't know what the frick's wrong with me right now, but, yeah, as I was saying before, I don't know if the 1970 level is meant to be, like, a reference to the Vietnam War, because the Vietnam War was still very much active at that time, but I'm not entirely sure why they chose attack helicopters specifically to represent that specific era. especially considering they did use fighter jets during the Vietnam War, especially America, but, like, yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what the reasoning behind that is exactly. Yeah, you really need to be careful for these bombs here, because they just, like, lob these bombs directly at you. I mean, you still can destroy them with your own bullets, so, I mean, there is that. I guess something else that I could also mention, too, that might be important to note, is that you can also destroy the mini-bosses instantly by crashing into them, but that's probably not something you want to be doing, unless you have cheats enabled, like I do right now, and you can just basically do that as often as you want. Now, if you do manage to destroy the boss by flying into it, it will still count as a level complete. The only difference is that usually there's a transition showing your, like at the end of each level, there's a transition showing your fighter jet progressing to the next era. There's like a little animation that plays. Well, the animation doesn't play if you manage to kill the mini-boss by going full kamikaze on it. Instead, there's a little, like, screen sweep animation that plays, and you still go on to the next level regardless, but you just don't get to see that unique little animation. That's the only real difference. Okay, there we go. Just go diagonally. Go diagonally. There we go. You just have to keep moving and shooting. This is another one of those shoot-'em-ups where you just need to frequently move and shoot. And I mean, you can also tell when you're doing damage to the larger enemies, because there will be smoke that starts getting emitted from their engines. So that's one way you can tell that you're doing damage to them. I'm only enabling cheats for now, just because I don't know what in the world is wrong with my brain at the moment, but it's just like, yeah, I can't seem to play this game to save my pitiful existence at the moment, so frick it, let's just keep going. We're just gonna keep going with cheats. I mean, this is not a large game anyway. I mean, this is more or less what I did when I played Ikaruga. I basically enabled infinite continues, which is basically like enabling infinite lives. The only difference is that my score doesn't get saved at the end. Whatever, I basically did the same thing when I played Ikaruga, because I mean, Ikaruga is a freaking hard game as well, but it's also a very short game, so when I did play that game a couple of years ago, I still really wanted to show the entire game off to you guys, because I felt like, well, you know, the game is such a short experience anyway that I might as well just show off everything that the game has to offer, like all the levels specifically. I may as well, because it wouldn't take that long. So whatever, it's fine. I don't really care. I'm just here to, I just feel like mindlessly blowing stuff up right now. That's pretty much it. Okay, well, I'm actually doing really damn well right now, all of a sudden. Yeah, of course, as soon as I enable cheats, I actually start doing fairly decently, of course. Freaking course. Okay, but we're gonna kill this plane right here. Where is it? I don't remember if this guy can also, like, lob missiles at you as well, but the mini-bosses can also fire bullets at you as well, I'm pretty certain. Yeah, okay, well, whatever. We crashed into him, we killed him by crashing into him, so when you do that, you get the screen sweep motion instead, but we are going to 1982. So, the 1982 stage, you have modern-day fighting jets, or at least they were modern at the time that this game came out. So the main difference here with the title of this level is that if you're playing the North American version of this game, then instead of 1982, you'll be going to 1983 after the 1970 level. And the reason for that discrepancy is because the North American version of this game came out in January of 1983, whereas the Japanese version came out in November of 1982. And the North American version was published by a company called Century, whereas the Japanese version was published by Konami themselves. And I believe the European version was actually published by Atari, if I'm not mistaken. Specifically Atari Ireland. Yeah, apparently Atari had an Irish division back in the early 80s, and they were responsible for, distributing Time Pilot in Europe. Here we go. Okay, we're actually really close to summoning the boss of this stage already. Yeah, it's just a big fighter jet. Oh yeah, you'll also notice, by the way, that the levels do get a lot faster as they progress. So the game actually does get a lot more difficult as it progresses, because the game starts becoming a lot faster, but your ship also becomes a lot faster too, so there's a little bit of an upside to it. Your ship also increases in speed along with the enemy fighters. So this is the 2001 level, and as you can see, we're in space, amongst a bunch of asteroids, like all the clouds have been replaced with asteroids. We're fighting UFOs that are shooting heat-seeking lightning, and energy balls. Both of which I think you can destroy with your own bullets, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, this basically just turned into a straight-up science fiction shoot-'em-up, basically. And I mean, it was already kind of science fiction to begin with, because I mean, we were dealing with time travel after all. This is by far the most difficult level, though, because the UFOs move extremely fast, and they also fire like a barrage of crap at you as soon as they see you, so yeah, this is a little bit insane. There's just a teensy tiny bit of sensory overload that is occurring in this particular level. That's okay. That's okay, because we have the power of cheats at our disposal. I mean, this is not really a cheat that gives you infinite lives, because it gives you 255 lives specifically. So if I die enough times, I will actually end up getting a game over. So it's not like, yeah, it's not like I'm fully protected against that. If I die too many times, then that will be it for me. But like, yeah, this is the final level of the game right here. And once you manage to summon the mini-boss in this level is a giant UFO. And that's about it for the entire game after that. So like I said before, the game does loop on itself after that. Yeah, here's the UFO right here, actually. See if I can destroy it. There we go. Very nice indeed. And after that, we're gonna war up back to 1910. Yeah, we're basically just stuck in a time loop. But I think the main difference here is that when we do start war-upping back and we go into the second loop, I do believe the enemies are a lot more aggressive, because I think they will be firing a lot more bullets at you than they normally would. And you'll also notice how slow the game has become as well, because you'll notice how slow my fighter jet is moving, and also the enemy play-ins. Yeah, so everything does become a lot slower. Everything slows down slightly so that you can get your bearings, as it were. My god, man, these bombs are so hard to avoid. But yeah, there's not too much else that changes with the game after you manage to get through the first 5 levels. That's about it other than that. As with most games from this era, the game just loops indefinitely until you run out of lives. And that's about it. That's about all there is to it. And other than that, that is basically Time Pilot in a nutshell. Yeah, so a relatively simple shoot-'em-up, but I still feel like it's fun to play in short bursts, for like short 5-minute bursts perhaps. But yeah, it doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel though, because this game was doing a lot of things that a lot of other shoot-'em-ups were already doing at the time, and a lot of other arcade games. Like the parallax scrolling is not unique to Time Pilot, because Moon Patrol had done that before. And also this like 8 degrees of movement and this sort of like freedom of movement here where you can move pretty much anywhere you want on the screen. It kind of feels like you're flying around in a giant open environment. Again, Bosconian was already doing that before Time Pilot did. So I can kind of see why exactly this game is not remembered all that fondly, aside from like getting some console ports like a really long time ago, like on the Atari 2600 and the ColecoVision, and I do believe there was an MSX port as well. I think the game was moderately successful, to say the least. I think it did have some sort of success in North America as well. But any amount of success that this game did have back in 1982-83, it didn't seem to translate into, you know, a pop culture staple. It didn't end up becoming a pop culture staple in the same way that, you know, Pac-Man and Galaga did. Well, I don't even know if I would consider Galaga to be a pop culture staple necessarily, but it's definitely, you know, one of the most iconic arcade games from this era, but whatever. It was not a crazy successful game, from what I know. Like, that's basically what I'm trying to say here. It was nowhere near as successful as other shoot-'em-ups of its time, whether it be Galaga or even Konami's own Scramble. So yeah, there's pretty much nothing else to say about this. It is still a well-made shoot-'em-up, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this game is bad, but it's just, I don't know, maybe a little bit uninspired, aside from the whole time travel mechanic here, which I do kind of like, because, I mean, there were a lot of shoot-'em-ups in this era that were mostly themed around space, but this one was themed mostly around dogfighting in, like, Earth-like environments, and also dogfighting through different periods of time, like World War I, World War II, and what I assume is the Vietnam War in this 1970 level, but I can't tell for sure, but yeah. So, I mean, it's still a fun shoot-'em-up. It's just, I don't know. Not the most original shoot 'em up, I would say. And that's really all I have to say about it. So you know what I'm gonna do? I think I'm just gonna actually pause the emulation right here, because I don't think there's any way for me to go back to, the main menu unless I try to lose all 255 of my lives, which I'm not going to waste my time doing right now. And I think with all that out of the way, we are going to go to the sequel here, which is Time Pilot 84. So how about we go and just do that right away? I really don't have anything more to say about Time Pilot, so it's a good shoot 'em up, but that's all the redeeming qualities it has, pretty much. So with that being said, let's time travel 2 years into the future and check out Time Pilot 84. Alright, welcome to Time Pilot 84, Further into Unknown World. Gotta read off the subtitle as well, because this game does apparently have a subtitle. So, this is the sequel to Time Pilot. I think most people would consider this to be an indirect sequel to Time Pilot, because this game pretty much has nothing to do with the original Time Pilot. So, I don't even know what the plot of this game is, or if it even really has a plot to begin with, but this game is another top-down shoot-em-up, much like the original Time Pilot, and this game is set really far into the future. I don't know which year specifically, but this game does have a futuristic sci-fi setting where you're basically just destroying more ships and not really doing anything else. But one upgrade that this game did receive from the original Time Pilot is that you can actually fire your own heat-seeking missiles now, and some enemies in this game can only be defeated with heat-seeking missiles. But yeah, Time Pilot 84 is kind of a weird sequel, because it has almost nothing to do with the original game, and the whole time travel mechanic that made the original Time Pilot somewhat unique amongst shoot-em-ups of its era, well, that whole concept has been completely thrown out the window in this game. Because you are not actually doing any amount of time travel in this game. You're just stuck to one specific era, and I don't even know what era that is, probably like far into the 21st century if I had to guess. And once again, this is still a relatively fun shoot 'em up, but this game somehow manages to feel even more generic than the original. It's a very bizarre sequel, to say the least, and again, this was made by Konami, and it was released in 1984, as its title suggests. And you know what? Let's not waste any time at all. Let's just throw a few credits into here, and let's just start playing right away. So, this game does not have a cheat that allows you to get infinite lives, unfortunately, or 255 lives, technically. But it does allow you to have up to 7 lives, or give yourself up to 7 lives. So, what exactly is going on in this game? Well, we have green enemies right here that we can kill with our own normal bullets, which we can fire by pressing control if we're playing this on Mayhem. And then we also have missiles that we can fire at enemies. We need to destroy the silver enemies with missiles. We can fire them with the Alt key. But in order to destroy those enemies, we actually need to lock onto them first. There will be a crosshair, or like a little target, that appears over the enemies, which shows that we can fire a missile at them, and it'll actually target them directly. So what you saw right there was actually the mini-bosses that we fight throughout most of the levels in Time Pilot 84. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, it kind of looks like an enemy out of Xevious. I mean, it does kind of look like one of the mini-bosses from that game. Yeah, so much like the original Time Pilot, there is a little bit of an indicator, like telling you when exactly the mini-boss is going to spawn. I do think you need to destroy a specific amount of enemies in order to get the mini-boss to spawn, but the indication for when the mini-boss spawns is a little bit different, because you'll see that there's a little icon, a little flashing icon that appears at the bottom of the screen, showing you when exactly, or basically showing you that the mini-boss is about to spawn. There's no, like, specific indication telling you when exactly the mini-boss is going to appear. Like, you saw in the original Time Pilot that there were a group of icons, like enemy icons, at the bottom of the screen that would get wiped out the more enemies that you destroyed. And once all of those icons had been completely erased, then the mini-boss would spawn in. But it doesn't show you that in this game, so you kind of have to just shoot at enemies kind of mindlessly, and then eventually the mini-boss will spawn after a while. Yeah, there's also, like, specific silver enemies that only appear in specific levels as well. like those giant silver enemies that kind of look like giant bugs, almost. But again, you can destroy those enemies easily if you just lock onto them, fire a missile, and there you go, you get 1,000 points for that. Yeah, so you will lock onto those silver enemies automatically. Once the target appears over them, then you just press the Alt key and you can fire a missile at them directly, and it should start chasing after them. Yeah, and not only that, but the mini-bosses that you fight in this game is literally the same type of mini-boss, like every single level. And in order to kill that mini-boss, you just have to fire one single missile at him, and he'll die instantly. So, technically the mini-bosses are actually easier to destroy in this game than they are in the original Time Pilot, which is kind of funny. That doesn't mean they're not difficult to destroy, because you still have to avoid their missiles, and the missiles do target you directly. Yeah, also these frickers right here, not these little, like, boomerang enemies that I'm firing at, but, like, yeah, these silver ones that are, like, moving around in a circle, and their movement is a little bit unpredictable. I don't even know where the frick we are right now. Yeah, but once again, the environments in Time Pilot 84 are fairly large. We do have some fairly large maps that we're dealing with here. Oh god, that guy just, like, looped around. Hang on a second. Trying to target you, bud. There we go. Oh yeah, and when you kill him, as soon as you kill the mini-boss, that also obliterates his missiles. Alright, so we're on stage 5. I have no idea how many stages this game has, but it does seem like there's a little bit more variety in the environments than there is in Time Pilot, because in Time Pilot, you're literally just flying through the sky, and the only thing that... Wait, hello? Okay, I lost focus of the game window there for a minute. Great. Thank you, Windows. Appreciate ya. Oh my god, what am I even doing right now? Yeah, but I do at least appreciate the fact that there's more variety in the environments, because the environments were fairly simplistic in Time Pilot 82, technically. I mean, if we're trying to distinguish this game from the original. Because, I mean, in the original Time Pilot, you were literally just flying through the sky, and, you know, there was the space level, of course, the 2001 level, where you're actually flying through space with a bunch of asteroids in the background. But other than that, the environments in the original Time Pilot don't really change all too much. Usually, the only change in the environment is, like, a change in the time of day. Like, sometimes the sky color will change, but that's about it. The environments in Time Pilot 84 are definitely a lot more detailed, which I definitely appreciate, and they're a lot more varied as well. If you want to see some more varied terrain, you do need to go traveling a little bit. Like, traveling to the left over here, you'll notice these, like, yeah, all these craters right here. This very crater terrain is kind of cool. Kind of seems like this one is taking place at night. Interestingly. Oh god, okay, well, doesn't matter, he's gonna come back immediately. Okay, there we go. I need to try and, there we go. I need to, like, position my ship so that my ship is pointed directly at the mini-boss. And then I'll be able to fire a missile at him and destroy him immediately. That's pretty much how that works. Oh my god, please. Everything just kills me in one hit in this game. But, I mean, then again, it also did that in the original Time Pilot, so what am I complaining about? I do believe these green enemies can launch bullets at you on occasion. I don't know if they're the only ones that can launch bullets. I don't think they are. Yeah, these guys that are just kind of moving around in a wave formation. Again, kind of reminiscent of some of the enemies from Xevious. No, I'm avoiding that. I saw it trailing towards me. I saw it. I moved out of the way. There. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, there. Please. My god. Oh, goodness. Okay, attack formations as well have also returned in this game, by the way. I do wanna make note of that, too. Yeah, as soon as the mini-boss appears, all of the other enemies disappear, too. So it's just you and the mini-boss. You and the mini-boss doing the little dance. The little dance of death right here. Get out of here. There we go. Very nice. Okay. And actually, something else that I also want to mention too, you can kill the mini-boss instantly by flying into it in this game as well, just like you could in the original Time Pilot, but it does come at the cost of one of your lives. So, it's probably best if you just use a missile, because frankly, it's a lot easier. Oh, no, no, no. No, 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 no. Yeah, it's just a lot easier to kill him that way. Let's try... Can I lock on? Those are like little bombs that I need to try and avoid. Really? He's like right there and you can't freaking lock onto him? Yeah, so when you fire a missile and it doesn't actually lock onto an enemy, it just flies off in a random direction. Yep, it just flies away in a completely random direction. There we go. Okay, that actually did sort of work. Oh my goodness, that guy was trying to cut me off. Hang on a minute. Hang on. I need some concentration right now. Alright, you are going to get fricked. There we go. Very nice. Yeah, I think I need to, like, I need to be aiming directly at him. How did that not kill you? That should have killed you, but it didn't. Which means this game clearly sucks. No, what it actually means is that I clearly suck. I just suck at everything that I've ever done in life. There we go. I've never thought about any decision I've ever made in my life whatsoever. Hashtag relatable. Okay, there we go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but I mean, other than that, guys, there's nothing more to say about this game either. This is basically all of Time Pilot 84. And once again, I don't know how many stages there are exactly in this game, and I wouldn't be able to tell you... I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head, because there is no dip switch in this game that allows you to enable 255 lives. The most amount of lives you can give yourself in this game is 7. So yeah, I have no idea when exactly the game starts looping, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a definitive ending. I don't know how many, like, unique environments there are in this game. Are those actually the ships from the original Time Pilot? That's kind of what that looked like there. What the heck? I actually didn't see those enemies there before. Okay, well that was kind of odd. That's kind of weird. Yeah, by the way, I do want to mention that the mini-boss doesn't actually stay the same in every single level. He does actually get a lot faster, and he starts firing missiles a lot more quickly too. So you really need to be fast on your feet if you want to try and kill the mini-boss instantly in the later levels. Because he does get faster. He doesn't just remain at the same speed for the entire game. He does actually get a lot quicker. So, gotta remain vigilant. Gotta remain vigilant about that. My god, I don't like these enemies right here because their movement is so unpredictable. Oh god. There we go. Oh, gee. It was too late. I saw him coming at me and it was just too late. It was just way too freaking late, dude. Okay, here we go, here we go. The mini-boss is coming. There we go. Everyone just scatter. Scatter, please. Oh, good god. I want to get away from these guys right here because those guys can also fire bullets. But there we go. If I kill the mini-boss, they will also get destroyed instantly. Very nice indeed. I mean, I do kind of like that, that teleportation effect on my little ship right there. It still looks kind of cool, I guess. Yeah, but I mean, that's about it for Time Pilot 84, guys. I mean, again, okay, this guy fires a lot of missiles, and I'm already dead anyway, so who gives a crap? It doesn't even matter. Thank you for playing. 61,200, fine, I'll enter my initials. RBK, Robotnik, very nice. Yeah, but I mean, that's basically all there is to say about Time Pilot 84 as well. That's pretty much the entire game. I don't know how long it goes on for, but I've managed to get to, like, stage 6 or 7 on 7 lives. I don't know when exactly the game begins to loop on itself, but it does seem like it has a lot more levels than the original Time Pilot, but I'm not really interested in seeing the game through to the end, so I think that's where we're gonna stop things for now. Again, Time Pilot 84, it's still a fun shoot-'em-up, like it's fun to play in short 5-minute bursts, but I do kind of feel like it feels a lot more generic than the original Time Pilot. They basically took everything that made the original Time Pilot somewhat unique amongst shoot-'em-ups of its time, and they basically just threw all of that in the waste bin. They basically took the concept of time travel from the original game, said screw all of that, and they started over from scratch, it seems. And instead of making something unique and different, they just went with another futuristic science fiction shoot-'em-up, which the video game industry already had that in spades by 1984, so yeah. I don't know what the decision behind that was at Konami, but... So there you go, those were the Time Pilot games, and as far as I know, these were the only 2 games to ever be released in the Time Pilot series. I think Time Pilot 84 was the only sequel that Time Pilot ever received. It's definitely not as fondly remembered as some of Konami's other classic arcade shoot-'em-ups like the Gradius series or even Scramble. And I mean, Scramble is technically part of the Gradius series, because I think it's meant to be a prequel to the first game, if I'm not mistaken. So while they are still relatively fun shoot-'em-ups to play, I can definitely see why they're not that well remembered, because it doesn't seem like they were really trying to do anything that unique at the time or anything that different. I mean, the whole concept of time travel was interesting in the first game. I don't think there were that many shoot-'em-ups that dealt with the whole concept of time travel back then, but when it came time to make a sequel to Time Pilot, they just ditched the idea of time travel altogether, and they just went for another, like, standard sci-fi shoot 'em up, basically. I don't know, man. I feel like this series could have had a lot of potential, but it seems like that potential was mostly wasted, especially with the second game. So I'm not too surprised then that this franchise ended up becoming a relic of the past. I don't think there's even been a new Time Pilot game since Time Pilot 84. A modern-day remake of Time Pilot would certainly be interesting, I think, but I don't know if Konami is interested in doing that. Konami probably isn't interested in doing that, honestly. I don't know, man. The Time Pilot series has been in stasis for, like, almost 4 decades now, so I highly doubt Konami will ever do anything brand new with the IP. I don't think they're interested. I mean, if the games were not that successful to begin with, then I highly doubt Konami would have any iota of interest in bringing this series back and trying to introduce this series to a new generation. Now, that being said, there was something interesting that did happen recently in regards to Time Pilot 84. The game did actually get re-released on the Nintendo Switch not too long ago. That's right, if you want to actually play Time Pilot 84 on your Switch, you actually can. There is an official Switch port of Time Pilot 84 that came out in May of this year. It was re-released by Hamster Corporation, and Hamster are fairly well known at this point for releasing a lot of classic arcade games on modern systems, although I would argue a lot of the games that they tend to release are pretty obscure. Some of them are pretty well known though, because I think Hamster were also responsible for re-releasing Gradius 2, which was also made by Konami. They have re-released a lot of Konami arcade games in particular, including the more unknown arcade titles from Konami, the real, like, deep cuts, as it were. But yeah, they actually re-released Time Pilot 84 on the Switch as part of their Arcade Archive series. If you want to go and download it, I will, or if you want to go and purchase it, I should say, I will provide the link in the description. You can play Time Pilot 84 on the Switch. It's officially available on that platform. I'm not sure about the original Time Pilot though, but I can try and check, and if the original Time Pilot is also available on the Switch, I could link it down in the description too, but I have to go and check first to see if it is on there. And with all that being said, I do believe I am done now, so yeah, that was the Time Pilot series. Just another relatively unknown series of Konami shoot 'em ups that I just wanted to talk about. Still relatively fun to play, but they don't exactly reinvent the genre, or they don't really try anything new, per se. But I think if you're a fan of shoot 'em ups, then you'll probably get some enjoyment out of them for maybe a few minutes at most. But if you want to play a seriously good shoot 'em up from Konami, then you're better off just playing Gradius. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me for now, guys. So, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video I make. Later.